how do you kind of keep things fresh for the diehard
Sure.
fans?
Well, I think if you're a diehard fan of the show, what you want to see, I mean, that Lucifer shows up, that we go into Apocalypse World, I think is cool. But what you turn into week after week is for the characters that you love. And so if you're really into Sam Dean and Castiel, we could have them reading a phone book and a certain number of fans would just tune in. So I think when we know we have that engagement, we know we have that bedrock to kind of like fall back on, I think it allows us to take a lot of chances. And we've taken a lot of chances. Some have worked, some have worked a little bit less. But that we can do that allows us to push the envelope in ways that allows us to kind of change the show. You know what I mean? And the show has become more serialized over the years. This year with the idea of alternate worlds, I think opens up huge storytelling ramifications that will certainly last this year and, all willing, but potentially even last beyond that. So it's really about finding something like that, exploring it, seeing how far it takes you, and then, knowing when to kind of move on to the next thing. And the nice thing is, because our fans are so loyal, we are able to move on to the next thing. Yeah.
So with the topic of taking chances, how do you kind of formulate with, this will work, this isn't going to work? How do you kind of...
Sure. Some things don't feel right just inherent to the DNA of the show, which is, like, for example, this show is not really a show about, Sam and Dean fall in love with a girl and she's in the backseat of the car. It's not a romantic comedy. You know what I mean? So some things are just inherent. Some other things you think are going to work and you try and they don't. And we've had that happen too, where we've put time and energy into something we really believed was going to be great and it didn't quite work out. And I think you just have to be able to cut your losses and move on to the next thing. And again, the fact that Sam and Dean are really engaged and the fans are engaged in them, as long as they're there, people will follow us. And then I think there's other stuff that just kind of comes out of the blue and you're like, we'll give it a shot. And sometimes that's the stuff that works the best. Yeah.
What can you kind of tease for the fans about what's going to happen this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Sam and Dean, I think, you've got last year, it was all about how Sam and Dean respond to having a mom. You know what I mean? And they responded in very different ways and hopefully semi-dysfunctional ways sometimes. But this year it's more about how they are as parents. What happens when you are inherit this kid basically. How do you, is it nature versus nurture? Can you make this kid that could be bad? Can you make him good? What lessons have you learned you can impart? What lessons have you learned that you don't want to impart to him at all? So, I think that's really the coolest thing we're exploring, certainly the first part of this season.
No, it's a very complex show. It's a very complex show. How do you kind of gain inspiration for your characters and your plot points?
Yeah, in terms of the characters and in terms of individual episodes, it used to be we'd be like, okay, this is a cool urban legend or this is a cool monster. Lately, for a long time really, it's been asking a question of if Sam and Dean did X, how would it change them or how would it affect them? If Dean loses his memory, who does he become? You know what I mean? It's things like that, and those become really interesting questions for us to ask and explore. So as long as it comes back to the character, we feel there are many more stories to tell.